first?
First one, start from first.
I would like to apologize. Hello, namaste, and welcome to the webinar organized by Parsif Nepal on the topic Organizing and Storytelling Activism in Asia. This is our fourth series on gender and environment. My name is Pavita Sai. I am an executive member of Parsif Nepal. Parsif Nepal is an women-led organization in Nepal which aims to combat climate change and other environmental issues. Parsif Nepal was founded in 2014 through Global Parsif. The main objectives of Parsif Nepal is to inspire young people, especially the female leaders, to come forward to act towards climate change. It also developed a network to climate leaders. Parsif Nepal also help in gaining the knowledge about climate change and other related issues. Parsif, Parsif Nepal also find and implement alternative solutions to mitigate climate change. Parsif, Parsif Nepal have been conducting several campaigns, projects, workshops, discussions programs, and so on. It also focuses on the local issues of the global perspectives of climate change. Parsif Nepal currently stands against oil drilling and fossil fuel finance. It also acts on the theme such as mountains conservation, sustainable city, and gender related issues. Now, I would like to take an opportunity to welcome our today's guest for the webinar, Miss Beatrice Tulagan from Philippines. Today, she will be sharing about her experience on climate activism in Asia. Beatrice is, Beatrice is a climate organizer and she is also a writer in Philippines. She has started her journey in the climate movement after she has been awarded as a fellow climate advocate by the UNDP in Philippines to attend 2020 UNFCCC Conference of Parties in Lima, Peru. Beatrice is also formally advocacy president of climate reality projects, and she was also a policy research. In 2018, Beatrice in 2018 Beatrice conducted and launched a climate stories to short and content on climate change as an experience by the communities in the front line in the hope of supporting climate narratives. Beatrice is currently the East Asia Regional Organizing Specialist for 350.org. It is a non-profit international organization to build a global grassroots climate movement that can hold our leaders accountable to the realities of science and the principles of justice. Now, I will slightly move towards our major sessions of today's webinar. Before that, I would like to remind all our participants to mute off their mic to avoid disturbance. There will be Q&A sessions for the participant at the end of the sessions, and you can also drop your questions in the chat box during the sessions. Now, without any delay, I would like to head it towards our first questions of Tech Talk sessions with Beatrice. The first questions to Beatrice goes hereby. What Beatrice, over to you, Beatrice. What inspired you to become a climate activist?
Thank you for that question, Pabita, and thank you for having me, Power Chef Nepal. I've long been an admirer of your organization, and I'm very happy and honored to be here tonight. What inspired me to be a climate activist? Basically, my answer to that just revolves around being what inspires me to fight for the world and for the people in it. I believe that climate change is such an intersectional issue. And what inspires me to stay in the movement is the fact that advocating and fighting for climate justice means advocating and fighting for all other justices in the world, everything from gender rights to human rights to the rights of refugees. When you build a world, when you envision a world that has achieved climate justice, it means that all these other struggles are part of that too. So what really inspires me is how intersectional and how all encompassing the fight for climate justice is.
Thank you, Beatrice, for the information. What have been the most rewarding points of your journey as an activist? What struggles have you faced as an activist?
Yeah, first I'd like to go on to the most rewarding parts, and I can answer this question in two parts. The first one, I always say this to everyone that I work with, anyone who would lend an ear. My favorite part about being a climate activist is always meeting new young people who are just getting into the movement and seeing them hold it out and take into their own leadership styles over the years. So it's the most rewarding thing for me has to be working alongside young people who are as passionate, as dedicated as their counterparts all over the world. My second answer to that would also be hearing the stories of communities who are on the front lines to climate impacts and also to fossil fuel projects. Growing up, I was never really what you would call an environmentalist. I never really had a strong inclination to fighting for the environment. But when I was in university, um, I started meeting people who are running resistance campaigns against fossil fuel projects. I started hearing the stories of young people who wanted to fight for their future. And that's the most rewarding thing for me is to see the best of humanity come into light just by meeting and getting to know um, climate activists, both young people and community frontliners, and just fighting alongside them in this long game. The struggles that I face, so there's a lot, definitely, especially in this day and age, in the state of the world right now. I'd like to answer first with my personal struggles. In the Philippines, I am what is considered to be a person with disability. I have an illness, and I could go about it for hours, but basically the summary is that as a person with disability, it means that sometimes I'm not feeling well enough to work, especially such um, in a movement that is very much um, taxing and draining at times, especially with the current state of affairs. So having this disability is a very big, deep personal struggle of mine. I always personally, I am someone who is always wanting to be on top of things. I'm sometimes a perfectionist. I like to work long hours, and whenever I'm really passionate about something, I stay on it until I could see what it could look like in the future. So basically, related to that, my other struggle would be being susceptible to burnout. I think many activists could relate to this. If you fight for something as big and as overwhelming as the planet, of course you're gonna have days where you feel drained, where you feel spent, and burnout is something that I'm really struggling with. Coupled with my disability, that makes things very hard for me at times. But what gets me through is the most rewarding thing, which is working alongside youth and community activists who restore my reserves of hope for the world.
It was really inspiring. It was and these are rewarding things you have done in your journey. Now I will head it towards another questions. Can you, Beatrice, can you describe your involvement in 350.org?
Yeah, so 350.org is this amazing organization of climate activists fighting not only for climate justice, but fighting for a vision of climate justice that encompasses every other struggle, everything from racial justice to women's rights to human rights and everything else. That's why it's so rewarding working for them. I started getting involved with 350.org, I think about 2 years ago. Previously, I worked locally here in the Philippines handling climate policy for another organization. But after doing some soul searching, I realized that my favorite part of the work really has to do with meeting people and organizing alongside people and running campaigns alongside people. So that started my involvement with 350. When I saw that there was an opening for an organizing role, I immediately applied, and thankfully I got the role. Um, my day to day with 350 now has to do a lot with talking again with youth activists and with community and local partners. I design trainings. I help run our campaigns by doing organizing work to ensure that we get the support that we need. And yeah, it's basically my work has to do with maintaining these relationships, because the climate movement and fighting for climate justice is really about making sure we are all in this fight together, and we have to build that trust, that camaraderie from the ground up. And I guess that's what I do. I work directly with people to ensure that we work together towards a better world.
You are really doing good work, Beatrice. How has your experience been organizing in climate actions with different youth groups across Asia?
Yeah, so when I started my role in 350, it's for a regional role. So coming from a local role where I just organize and design programs for Filipino youth activists, it's a big adjustment. But my experience so far has been good. I keep learning so much every day, and I keep getting inspired every day. Um, Especially these days, I see that our Asian youth has a lot on their minds and on their plates. Of course, other than grappling with the realities of COVID-19, a lot of our youth are dealing with their own unique socio-political contexts. And my experience with organizing with them is just this journey of constantly getting awestruck by how dedicated they are, not just to climate justice, but to also to ensuring that no one is left behind in the fight for climate justice. So I work alongside young people in Asia, and I realized that despite our cultural, socio-political differences, we all want the same thing, and it's for to build a better world that works for everyone and leaves no one behind. So my journey with them is just this long but very much rewarding work.
Thank you, Beatrice. Beatrice, you are also a writer. Your stories are very, inspirable, and you are also a climate storyteller. Now, can you explain what is storytelling and how do you relate it to your climate activism?
Yeah, I think storytelling is a necessary component of activism, in the sense that it's an admission of the fact that the stories, the struggles, um, it's never really one-sided. You always have to do some organizing work to ensure that you build relationships with people whose stories are central to the climate injustices and to our climate fight. Storytelling, it is for me, means listening. It means listening to people from the front lines. It means listening to historically marginalized groups. It's also listening to community solutions work and to stories of resilience and survival in the age not just of the climate crisis, but also in the age of fighting climate crisis amidst COVID-19 and a whole other myriad of issues that we confront. I feel like storytelling is central to the work, because we always have to take our guidance from people who are actually experiencing the impacts of climate change. Um, and not just climate change, actually, we always have to take guidance from the people whose very lives depend on our struggle and our movement. Um, in 2018, I started this media nonprofit. It's simply called Climate Stories, because I wanted to hear. Basically, it's just my entire project on listening to people on the front lines and making sure that their stories, that we decentralize the climate storytelling movement, in a sense that we don't just always listen to the same voices again and again, the same prominent environmentalists, especially those from the global north. But it was also very important for me to uplift stories not just of struggles but also of resilience and survival amidst everything that communities face. So right now we're transitioning to a platform called Kaya. It means able in Filipino. It's a platform mainly to highlight stories about solutions, stories about community building, stories about organizing and relationship building. I feel like activism, our unlike any other field in the world where they have a guidebook, where they have this entire body of literature with which they can turn to for answers. So, for example, if you're a physicist, you turn into the works of the scientists of the past, of generations before you. But if you're an activist, you don't really have a manual on how to do your activism. You don't know what's gonna go right. It's all in praxis. So I feel like our manual for our activism should be the stories that we have to keep an eye out for and to keep listening to. And that's why I think storytelling is very central to activism work, no matter what movement or field you are in.
Thank you, Beatrice. How has how has your experience have been using storytelling as a tool to inspire, organize, and retain youths in the moment?
Yeah, basically, I would turn that question around and say that I'm the one always getting inspired because the people that I work with, for example, the young people who are organizing this day of action in Asia, they're the ones who are going to the communities, to fisher communities, to farming communities, to labor unions, to women organizations. They're the ones gathering the stories. And I think this constant seeking um of a guide of stories that will help humanize and help um push forward climate ambition, because we're directly dealing with the actual lived experiences of these people. I feel like that will always inspire people because when you talk about climate change, for example, in the school setting or in any other setting, it's always this deeply scientific, full of technical jargon conversation. And when you talk about climate change from a human centered perspective, it means that these lived experiences can be understood as not just real, not just meaningful, but also an imperative to do climate action. So yeah, that's why I still think that we as activists, we have this constant push and pull between seeking the stories and constantly keeping an eye out, listening to them, making them our guide, and also allowing ourselves to get inspired by them day in and day out.
And how has the involvement of youths across Asia evolved since you first joined the movement for climate justice?
Yeah, I definitely think there's more collaboration now. Um, well, I started in the climate movement 5 years ago, and one of the earliest engagements that I've done is something called ASEAN Power Shift in Singapore. And it was the first time that I met climate advocates and climate activists from all over Southeast Asia. And we did stay connected, yes, but eventually we went on our own ways, and I still hear from them sometimes, and they're all doing amazing work. But I think what sets apart this new wave of climate activists who were organized and who were inspired to act for a better movement because of the recent wave of climate strikes. It's this desire for cross cultural and cross border collaboration. I feel like because of the advent of digital campaigning, especially since we're all quarantined, and because of COVID-19, we have more time to reach out to people who otherwise you wouldn't reach out to. And I'm so lucky because I keep seeing that every day as I work alongside youth activists. I see them collaborating on everything from a list of demands for the entire Asia region to something as creative as posters, everything that goes into activism work. Really, I feel like right now there's this there is more emphasis on collaboration, and there is the realization that despite again our socio-political contexts and our cultural differences, we all want the same thing, and we have the understanding that um, we will not be able to achieve climate justice if we work in isolation from each other.
Thank you, Beatrice. Your engagement was really amazing in climate justice. Now, can you tell us more about the Asia Climate Rally and your role in it? How can this bring forward the voice of youths of the global south in the border climate movement?
Yeah, so basically, if I were to describe my role in Asia Climate Rally, it's basically I'm playing to be candid about it. I'm just playing more of a big sister cheerleader role. The youth of Asia, people who are striking all over Asia and who have been doing programs and campaigns all over our region, they're the ones who might deserve to be under the spotlight here. My role is basically just I joke about this with my colleagues sometimes, but my role basically is to matchmake and to connect them to each other for whatever needs that they might have. And I'm very lucky because, again, as I've mentioned, they're very much open to collaborations and they see it as central to activism work. The Asia Climate Rally is a regional day of action in Asia that is completely youth led. It's going to be on November 7, which I think is a little bit less than 2 weeks from now. And the youth are going to be presenting a list of 5 demands that they want, that they demand from Asian governments, from Asian institutions and businesses. And more so, they're organizing this in light of demanding a green and just recovery from COVID-19, with the understanding that um, we can't really move forward towards building a better world if our policies in place are not only pro planet but they have to be pro people as well. So the Asia Climate Rally team right now is working also on a live stream. So there's going to be a program filled with youth dialogues. Yeah, it's very intersectional and cross regional in the sense that they were going to be talking with each other about similar experiences under COVID and under a world that's confronting climate breakdown. So I really hope that we can invite more youth to the Asia Climate Rally, because this is our moment to really center Asia specific demands, with the understanding again that Asia, despite being one of the most vulnerable regions to climate change, is also the top funder of fossil fuel projects that directly result in further climate breakdown. So it's a day for our Asian organizers or Asian youth organizers and Asian youth leaders to really show the world that we are also fighting, that we have our own set of demands, and we are not going to be silenced anymore. We are going to be raising these demands up, and we're really hoping that youth and other environment leaders from other regions can also join us in this fight.
Day by day, you are inspiring climate youth all over the world. Now, will you explain about Finance in Common Summit, GTO Summit?
Yeah, basically these platforms are available to us to observe, more so because it's a lot of the sessions are also being observed online. But basically, these are gatherings of the most influential and most powerful public banks and powerful countries, the G20. And its importance not just to the Asia Climate Rally but to the world is it's this opportunity to show that for generations these powerful entities have been siding with climate polluters. For generations, what we consider to be economic progress is hinged upon a definition that rests upon the pollution of the earth and the growing vulnerability of already historically marginalized groups. So, what does this mean for Asia Climate Rally? We see this as an opportunity to directly show them that, for example, for FIC, for the Finance and Common Summit, that public banks shouldn't be able to fund fossil fuel projects anymore because these are not aligned not just with the sustainable development goals, but not aligned also with every vision of green and just recovery that countries are supposedly advocating for. So the youth, as far as I know, they have one demand that directly names and addresses the continuous financing of fossil fuels by the top public banks, the top finance institutions such as the World Bank, the ADB, and other institutions. So why is it important? Obviously it's important because they're the ones financing these polluting industry, but it's also very important to signal a social shift from supporting these industries and putting the money towards solutions that work for the people and for the planet. So basically what we're trying to do is we have to show these top financial institutions that our vision of recovery from COVID-19 has to be, and this is very important, it has to be resting on ensuring that we build a better world and we start that vision of a better world by not continuing on our old ways. As for G20, it's pretty much the same message. The top leaders, the top countries of the world should take the lead indeed in restoring the economic success of each country, but not to do that at the back of communities who suffer first from the impacts of climate change and by living beside these fossil fuel projects. So our vision of progress, both for FIC and for G20, should not only be pro economy, pro people, but also be pro planet because there as activists keep saying there's no planet B, and no matter how much money we make or how much money we save, if we don't take care of our planet, then it's ultimately going to be up to the youth, to the future generations, who will suffer from it. Yeah.
Uh, how did you utilize the youths from Asia for the first time when you involved in climate movement?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How did you utilize youths from Asia for the first time in climate movement?
Well, I think this is definitely not the first time that they've collaborated under for climate justice and for other causes. Um, Basically, my role, as I've mentioned, has just been to connect them with each other, to provide platforms where they could talk, very logistical backstage roles, to be honest. And it's just this journey of seeing them grow into their own, seeing them um, really build relationships, strong partnerships and relationships with each other in this fight. So I would say that my experience so far in utilizing youth support for not just for Asia Climate Rally, but for also each campaign that 350 is involved in has been very rewarding because the youth, especially Power Shift Nepal, has been open to collaborating with youth from all over the region. Um, I see that we really place value not just in typical markers of success like carbon policies that gets passed or whatever, but we also place a high value on whether or not our communities survive and thrive, and I think that's one unifying factor and across the region, across all these youth organizations, is that at the end of the day, They're concerned not about the corporate executives or economic policies or climate policies even. They're concerned about the very human beings who are affected by climate impacts and by fossil fuel projects.
Thank you, Beatrice. What is your aspirations as young female activist?
I think my aspirations at the end of the day would always be to achieve a world where climate justice is possible. And that means justice is also restored in all fronts. Everything again from gender to racial justice to the rights of women, of farmers, of historically marginalized groups. My aspiration um, is one day to not have a job because my job will be rendered irrelevant anymore because we have achieved complete solidarity in working towards towards building a better world. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Beatrice. You have been doing this work for a long time. And what is the differences do you see in the youth of past and present?
Yeah, for the youth of the past, usually people my age. Well, I'm not that old, but I'm not also that young. I'm 26, and a lot growing up, I heard in the Philippines, for example, it's not climate denial is not a big thing, but people are still wary of the urgency with which we should take climate action. At least when I was growing out of like from schooling to working. And now the main difference that I really see is that the youth are leading the way in making sure that our governments have the highest ambition possible. That the youth are also urging governments to declare a climate emergency. The youth are seeing climate change as not just a random environmental issue that you see in textbooks, but an issue of here and now, an issue that requires all hands on deck, and an issue that requires an intersectional approach. So I think the youth of today are not only more motivated and more creative with regards to how they use digital spaces to connect with each other, but also sees the reality of the climate crisis as a climate emergency and therefore something that we should take on with utmost immediacy with utmost immediacy. Sorry. So yeah.
Thank you, Beatrice. We got to know more about it. Now, can you say how can a youth from Asian country like Nepal contribute to the Asian climate rally?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I've been hearing a lot of young people wondering how to get involved with Asia Climate Rally. First, because we're under COVID-19 restrictions, but second, also because not every young person is organized and has organized or is part of a youth organization. I think the first step, especially for individuals with no affiliation, with no organization yet, is to reach out to groups that are already existing. Make sure that you build relationships with youth who are also dedicated to the same cause. Because I think that would ensure that you distribute the work effectively. I believe again that the first step to organizing in campaigns is always relationship building, and being able to reach out to already existing formations, whether it be small organizations or big coalitions, will help you not just stay connected to the movement, but also learn from people from that organization. So I would advise the youth of Nepal, for example, to connect with Parish of Nepal or and to connect with other organizations that they think their values are aligned with. So yeah, that's and then through those organizations connect with other youth from other countries. I think it's always better to work together, and as we as we demand solidarity from our leaders, we also must demand solidarity from ourselves. So I think staying connected with your local organizations, and then being instrumental in reaching out to other youth from other countries will be really helpful, as this strengthens the local capacity of the organizations.
Thank you, Beatrice. So we will, we hope we will do in Nepal like you as well. Now we are at the end of this webinar. I think I would like to open the floor for questions to our participant. You can unmute your mic and ask to Beatrice directly. Do participant have questions? No from participant.
I have written two questions in chat. Let me ask. Uh, how satisfied are you with the movement in Asia right now? Like, mm, where you see drawbacks and ways to improve to make action more effective? And that is first. And second one is like how 350 and you are working in linking with older generation, like working in this action activism from longer time, like some people are I met like working from 30 years, some 40 years, how this rally and the 350 will link actions against like in common agenda.
Thank you. Those are wonderful questions. I'll answer the first one on my satisfaction with the movement in Asia, the drawbacks that I see, and the ways to improve to make action movement more effective. I think there is always room to grow in any movement, in any field, actually, in any undertaking. There is always room to grow. So it is helpful to never be satisfied with regards to how well connected we are with other movements, with other struggles. I would say that by if it were up to me, my main priority would always be to make the climate movement more intersectional. We have to make a more conscious effort to relate to groups who might not see their struggle as central also or affected by the climate emergency. Um, the way that I do this is that I try to reach out to people from various struggles. Last year, I was part of a fellowship also of environmental justice and gender. So exactly the topic of the webinar series right now. But because I wanted to learn more about how feminists can stand and can lead the way in the fight for climate justice alongside other movements. So I would say that the main drawback to any undertaking is always thinking that we're working in isolation, and it's so easy to get lost in the day-to-day work, and also the or how overwhelming our work is. I think it's always important to check ourselves and to check if we're reaching out to the people that we want to reach out to. I think it's always a problem whenever we speak in the same echo chamber, if our ideas just bounce off each other, and if it's always talking to people who are already convinced. We have to appeal to, for example, at the very least, the movable middle. People who are still undecided, but whose efforts we can really utilize towards building a better world. So, I guess my quick answer in summary would be, I'm never satisfied because I think there's always room to grow. As an organizer, as a campaigner, as someone in the movement, there's always room to grow. There's always a way to make ourselves better and more inclusive. And the main drawback that I see is that we have to reach out to more movements and more fields to make sure that it's really an intersectional, intergenerational, inclusive, and diversified approach. And that I think will lend us the insight on how to improve our work, our movement, and how to make our basically our life's work more effective. And to answer the second question, how are we linking with the older generation in the climate rally and in 350 in general? So my work in 350 recently, to answer the latter part of that question first, my work in 350 recently has shifted a little bit towards organizing and working with alongside young people. But that doesn't mean that we don't work with the older generations. My colleagues are very effective campaigners and organizers and storytellers who ensure that we are inclusive and we reach out to members of all sectors, and that means all ages and all all representations. So we work with other nonprofits, and these nonprofits specialize. They might not specialize in youth, but they are. These nonprofits are also led and basically ran by the best and the brightest seasoned climate activists. So it's an honor learning from them all the time. And in climate rally, I believe the youth is leading the way, yes, but we are reaching out to the same organizational partners. We are reaching out to other movements to ensure that while the youth is taking the lead for this particular day and for this particular project, um, we ensure that the voices represented are diverse and inclusive. So yes, we are also working alongside people from different sectors, ages, and others. Yeah, that's the answer in your discussion.
I can see another questions from Ms. Sagarika Bhatta. Since now 350 Asia is working as one region, how do you think we can make youths from these regions to take actions more? Because I see the Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia have awesome organizers.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the same thing in other countries. There are also organized groups and awesome organizers wherever you look. The thing is that we just have to do a better effort at reaching out to these already existing organizers and already existing community formations. I think we at 350 Asia, we always value our network and getting to meet people from different places. Um, and it's always a nice change of pace whenever we're introduced to, for example, a country partner who we haven't worked with yet, or a youth organizer who we haven't reached out to as regularly. I think that's always very important, because when we say we're decentering the voices of the climate storytelling movement, we don't mean just repeating the same voices from the global south again and again. We not just 350, but I think every organization, every youth formation has the responsibility to network more and to reach out more. And I think again, I'm pulling from our earlier conversation, but I think that's where storytelling comes into play. We have to do an active. We have to do it with intention, and we have to make a conscious effort towards ensuring that the voices that we feature, the voices that we work with, do not just come from one place. We always must keep um, understanding that there will always be voices from the sidelines that we may ignore unintentionally, and we always have to check ourselves and to ensure that we do also listen to those voices.
Thank you, Beatrice. Now there is I would like to ask the participants. Do anybody have questions? Still 3 minutes. Yes. I think no. Now we are at the end of the session. Thank you, Beatrice, for your wonderful experience and contributions in climate change. These sessions were very informative and insightful. Now I would like to welcome our chairperson of Powership Nepal, Ms. Sagarika Bhatta, to conclude this end session.
Thank you, Pavita. Hi, Bia. First of all, as Parsif Nepal family, we'd like to thank you for accepting the request. And also our apology that this time is our massive, big festival going on, and we could not actually make many of them engage in this call. We actually wanted this to be very engaging among youths of Nepal, so that they would know many things about organizing that 350 Asia is doing, along with what you have been doing. We hope that we'll be able to share our live video and our YouTube video in our Google group soon. Uh, so, uh, on behalf of Parsif Nepal, I'd like to thank Beatrice for letting her, giving us your experience, letting us know about your experience and your your organizing that you have been doing since long time. You have been really inspiring to all youths around Asia. At the time I knew you, actually since then I have been very inspired by you, the way you work, the way you organize, and your role especially. So I think you have been very inspirational to most of the females as well, that I see most of the females are also following you in the groups that we communicate sometimes. So as parts of Nepal team, we also wish you the best for coming days, and also we will always be connected with the work that 350 has been doing, and we'll also make this partnership more better. And also we hope that we can collaborate more countries around Asia with the network of 350 in coming days. Thank you so much, Bia.
Thank you so much, Sagarika, and thank you so much, Pabita, and the entire Power Shift Nepal family for having me. It's always an honor. I keep saying this, and I'm gonna keep repeating it until the end. But it's my favorite thing about working in the climate movement is always working with youth activists and those leading in their own local communities. So it's always very inspiring to work with you. So thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you so much.
And also, I would like to thank to all our participants for listening us calmly and giving your valuable time. And thank you, Beatrice. You might be the inspiration for hundreds of youth around the world. Thank you so much for everything. With this, I would like to end this webinar. Thank you, all of you. Have a good time.